mechanized convoy pushes deep.
At 3:06 in the morning, October 26, 2025, the very nature of warfare shifted. Ukraine had just weaponized water. In less than 60 seconds, a critical Russian logistics hub, the lifeblood for their troops, was transformed into a flooded, chaotic wreck. The operation began with shadows. Two LA-100 reconnaissance drones painted a precise thermal picture of the target. A concealed Russian logistics node nestled one ridge behind a massive reservoir. On the infrared feed, the target area glowed white-hot. Concentrated heat signatures of personnel and materiel. 8 Ural, 4,320 military trucks. Each vehicle was a powder keg, loaded with between 8,820 and 11,025 pounds of artillery weapons, alongside 4 CAM AZ-5350 fuel tankers. They held a combined 2,512 gallons of diesel. Behind them, a reinforced dome warehouse confirmed the site's importance, a battalion-level logistics hub for the entire Eastern Donetsk front. A rapid war analysis quantified the stockpile: over 583,160 pounds of fuel and ammunition, a critical military update for command. It was enough to sustain a mechanized battalion for 48 hours of intense combat. And behind it all sat what the Russian army believed was their greatest protection: a colossal dam, impounding 80 billion gallons of water, a wall of potential energy. Once this fact registered, the tactical calculus of modern warfare changed. The reservoir was no longer just terrain. It was a weapon, a force of nature that could be turned against the occupiers in this brutal war. Within 15 minutes, the plan was set. Breach the dam's subsidiary control cluster. Create a directed surge downstream. Inundate the logistics node. The objective: sever the supply line and deny any possibility of repair. At 3:05 a.m., hidden from the enemy air force, 3 HIMARS launchers emerged from camouflaged positions near Chuhuiv. Coordinates from the drones were confirmed. Data links tested. The fire mission was relayed to the 16th Field Corps headquarters 2 minutes after the final systems check. The order was transmitted: execute. On each launcher, the panels cycled to ready. The soldiers inside gave their final, steady confirmations. A simultaneous ignition. 3 launchers, firing 2 GMLRS rounds each. These were modern weapons, guided with a fusion of GPS and inertial navigation. Their range exceeded 93 miles. The warhead itself was a piece of advanced defense technology, designed for one purpose: to penetrate reinforced concrete. Each warhead weighed 2 to 100 pounds, a heavy steel casing around a shaped charge core built to defeat hardened targets. 6 of these powerful weapons roared into the sky. But this was not a simple GPS-guided strike. As the rockets crossed the border, satellite guidance was severed. This was a new phase of the global conflict. Navigation switched to a combined terrain-following radar and inertial solution, a profile optimized to fly under the enemy's defense systems. The goal was to remain invisible. At the same time, northwest of Volchansk, a deception package launched: 2 UJ-22 decoy drones designed to mimic a threat from the Navy. They took off from a makeshift runway, improvised composite foam airframes, but fitted with sophisticated military RF emitters and an active jamming package. These were low-cost decoys, engineered to perfectly emulate the radar and infrared signatures of a Neptune cruise missile, a masterstroke of tactical planning. The UJ-22s flew low, between 492 and 656 feet, emitting the continuous electronic signatures of an inbound threat. They replicated a terminal attack profile, their radar cross-section and infrared returns tuned to produce the electronic fingerprint of a Neptune, a feint worthy of the Marines. At 3 a.m., a Russian 96L6E long-range radar detected the ghost signature. It was classified as an inbound cruise missile, triggering the area's air defense. A Pantsir S-1 battery, just 1.2 kilometers from the logistics node, switched its defense systems to automatic engagement, tracking the false vector. The entire air defense suite pivoted. Every sensor, every launcher, turned to face the northwest, staring at the electronic bait. With Russian defenses focused on the decoys, the 6 GMLRS rockets closed on the dam. They flew at an ultra-low altitude, 148 to 197 feet, hugging the terrain. Radar exposure was almost zero. Their speed was roughly Mach 3 over 2,200 miles per hour, giving the defenders mere seconds to react. Approximately 1.86 miles out, the missile's advanced defense technology made its final move, refining trajectories for a near-perpendicular impact. 85 to 90 degrees to the dam crest, the impact geometry was critical for structural defeat. Near-perpendicular impacts drove kinetic penetrators deep, placing the blast where it creates hydraulic leverage, a key element of modern weapons and defense technology. The defensive options were gone. The Pantsir battery had expended its interceptors. Its defense systems were caught in a reload window. Remaining rear elements were blind, their systems unable to track the low, slow-moving targets. Inside a Pantsir-sewn cabin, a junior lieutenant saw the incoming profile. He shouted a warning. The system was too slow to act. At 03, 07, and 5 seconds, the first GMLRS slammed into the central spillway. The penetrator warhead, a tool of modern warfare, tore through 4 inches of reinforced concrete. It detonated deep inside the dam. 2 seconds later, a second round hit the maintenance staircase. Subsequent strikes hammered the spillway axes and valve housings. The effect was cumulative, immediate, and brutally engineered. Each warhead carried 200 pounds of penetrative explosive. 6 of these weapons focused their energy on a single critical axis. Steel buckled, concrete groaned under the combined blast and hydrostatic load. A metallic scream echoed through the control room. Hairline fissures spiderwebbed across the concrete face. Water wept through the hot surface. A trickle became a torrent. Then, an explosion of shattered material. At 03-07, the dam breached. This war had a new, terrifying front. A wall of water was unleashed. Recon footage captured a vertical plume, soaring over 98 feet into the air. The initial surge was estimated at over 530 million US gallons, moving at 43.5 miles per hour, a slurry of mud, rock, and debris. 2.5 kilometers downstream, a Russian field logistics base for their army lay sleeping. More than 80 troops, logistics technicians, drivers, ammunition handlers, soldiers unaware of the deluge racing towards them. In 5 seconds, the surge hit. 3 Ural trucks vanished. Communications masts collapsed into the churning water. An electronics bunker flooded. Within 20 seconds, battlefield communications across the sector failed. This global conflict had just shifted. The recon feed from Observation Post 1 recorded the final thermal images. A large heat patch, drifting, dispersing. It was the last remnant of a fuel truck, its engine still burning. The feed died. But overhead, Ukrainian recon drones continued to circle. They silently recorded the destruction, compiling a strategic report for the latest military news cycle that would soon hit Russian command screens. At the Southern Military District Command Center, alerts multiplied. At 0300 hours, icons on the map began blinking out. The entire supply corridor north of Lyman, a sector that had seen heavy fighting, abruptly vanished. The military update was catastrophic. Reports raced up the chain. Communications lost, supply routes compromised. An operational telegram provided a Cold War analysis. Complete loss of logistics base Velocia due to hydrologic incident. The message enumerated the losses. 8 Ural military trucks, command vehicles, 4 CAM-AZ fuel tankers, communications gear, ammunition stores and UAV hangars all destroyed. This was a new kind of warfare. Initial casualty reports were deliberately conservative. A precise tally was impossible. Early field reports put personnel losses for the Army at no fewer than 80. Observation Post 5 transmitted its last thermal picture. A large heat patch fading into the water. The feed went dead. At the front, artillery units waited for a resupply that would never arrive. Their rear had been wiped from existence. Within 30 minutes, a tactical alert rippled through Rostov's southern military district. Along the Seversky Donetsk, Supply lines went dark, marked unsafe. Russian army engineers received their orders: survey the terrain, assess the damage, and draft a restoration plan, fast. From Chevikin and Starosil, sappers moved out. Floating bridge gear and repair teams raced to the front. Downstream, the hydraulic shock was a hammer blow. Extreme. The first 2 minutes were chaos. Water flows shattered every prediction. Velocities peaked at a staggering 43.5 miles per hour. It tore into riverbank structures, roads, and makeshift logistics infrastructure. The damage assessment: 30 to 70% destroyed. The Russian Ministry of Defense scrambled for eyes in the sky, demanding satellite imagery and fresh telemetry. But the sky was blind. Heavy clouds, the air thick with electronic interference from flares, and the persistent buzz of hostile drones. Real-time data was a ghost. For the troops near Vovchansk, Lyman, and Sloviansk, the clock was ticking. 24 to 72 hours before their supply lines bled out. Artillery shells, fuel, medical equipment, all running low. The only options left were pontoon bridges and airlift, a desperate gamble in this kind of modern warfare. Both options were high risk, increasing operational strain and exposing soldiers to enemy air power and interdiction. They tried using small resupply UAVs to plug the gap. Launched from Belgorod, the effort was futile. Their payloads were too small, a drop in the ocean against the sheer scale of the losses. This military update was grim. The long-term threat loomed. If the reservoir wasn't fixed, if the water stayed critically low, the southern riverside near Svatov faced a permanent change. The very ground itself would shift. Roads, river crossings, stable earth all altered. Moving wheeled logistics and heavy equipment would become a nightmare. The old routes were choked. Mud, boulders, debris, motor pools, refueling sites, and UAV hubs all compromised, all needing to be moved. Russian engineers delivered their estimate. Even a temporary fix would take 5 to 7 days, and that was under favorable conditions. An eternity in an active war. This was not a conventional artillery raid, not a standard UAV sortie. This operation combined precision long-range weapons. It used terrain-hugging penetration tactics and deliberate electronic warfare to create a hydrologic weapon, targeting the dam's control cluster. Shaped charge penetrators delivered the blow, while decoys distracted layered air defense systems. A civilian dam was transformed into a campaign-shaping munition. Its effect was immediate. The calculus was simple: lost equipment, shattered supply lines, and total operational paralysis imposed on the sector. A single hydro breach. The destructive power of several dozen high-yield HIMARS strikes. A stark piece of war analysis. The tactical lessons are concrete, and they are replicable. Identify high-value civil engineering nodes that, if breached, can produce cascading logistical failure. Integrate standoff precision fires with low-cost electronic deception to overwhelm point defenses. Use terrain-following guidance to shrink interceptor windows for these modern weapons. Operationally, the strike forced Russian command to react. Engineering resources were reallocated. This global conflict demanded flexibility. Bridge assets and Air Force lift capacity were pulled to repair and resupply, reshaping the operational tempo for days. If repeated, these tactics impose an asymmetric cost. They target a logistics network that relies on predictable river crossings and fixed staging hubs. Striking these vulnerabilities is a new form of defense technology. It creates a persistent risk of sudden fragmentation across Russian lines in Donetsk and Luhansk without engaging in protracted frontline attrition. This is significant military news. For any military commander, Army, Navy, or Marines planning force sustainment in riverine zones, the Belgorod breach is now the case study. Civil infrastructure can be operationalized, and integrated fires plus electronic deception can multiply its effect. The operational intelligence summary is stark. Coordinated use of UAV reconnaissance, GPS and INS. Terrain profile guided GMLRS rounds from HIMARS. Low-cost decoy UAVs to sequester local air defenses, and a focus on near-perpendicular penetrative impacts. The strike against the dam's control and spillway structures caused a catastrophic breach. The immediate tactical outcome was decisive. A battalion-level logistics node eliminated, multiple supply corridors severed, communications in the sector temporarily lost. A masterclass in modern warfare, the strike forced an operational pause. Russian military forces dependent on those routes were paralyzed. The strategic outcome was severe, a heavy cost in time and resources. Engineering assets, bridging units, and airlift capabilities had to be diverted, a critical blow to their logistical defense systems. Supplies were rerouted by air and land. On the front lines, soldiers faced a grim reality: limited options until logistics were restored. This was a textbook example of modern warfare, a precise tactical strike with devastating campaign-level consequences. This wasn't about the explosive yield of the modern weapons used. The true innovation was weaponizing geography itself. The Ukrainian military's approach was surgically precise, methodical, calculated. The strike was designed to create a cascading failure in logistics and sustainment, a harsh lesson in defense for any army operating in a riverine theater of war. The Belgorod reservoir breach now serves as a textbook case, a template demonstrating how the interplay of precision weapons, tactical deception, and hydrology can be leveraged. This is a critical military update for strategists, and a threat that all defense systems must now be designed to counter, because this was only the beginning.